My name is John Sitilides. I'm a geopolitical strategist in Washington, D.C. The Syria civil war, or civil wars, actually, because there are so many different factions fighting amongst themselves. It's not simply the Assad regime fighting against the opposition, which is the way this all started in 2011, has become enormously more complicated because of the involvement of countries such as Iran since the beginning, and especially Russia over the last 3 years. The Trump administration has a very clear objective involving the Syrian civil war as it pertains to Iran, and that is the complete withdrawal of Iranian military forces and political influence from the future of Syria. How that is accomplished, though, is going to be very, very difficult, given that Russia is probably the single most important military player, certainly in the air, in Syria, and the fact that the Iranian forces have thousands of their own proxies and mercenaries as the ground troops upholding the Assad regime's grip on power. So I think one of the things that President Trump will be discussing with President Putin in Helsinki is how they can work together to try to stabilize Syria, to bring about the best possible outcome there while moving Iranian forces out of the country to advance Russia's own interests, not as a favor to the United States or to any of the other factions in the country, but because Russia's long-term interests in the Middle East will be advanced by containing Iranian power and minimizing its influence in the Middle East as much as possible. Well, I think that's Senator Graham's position. How persuasive that'll be with President Trump is up in the air. The president has made very clear he has no interest in getting involved in another Middle Eastern war, and yet we are involved in Syria. That's unavoidable. It's not on the scale of the Iraq invasion. It's not on the scale of the Libya invasion, but we are playing a very important role in Syria, and we're also looking to see how we bolster partners that have been the most important in Syria to the United States and to helping us achieve our objectives. And those are the Syrian Kurds. There's simply no doubt about it. The question that is going to be very, very difficult for President Trump to try to balance out is how do we advance our partnership with the Syrian Kurds, who really are, I think, in many ways a stabilizing and pro-democratic force in eastern Syria, especially a hedge against other malign forces such as Iran in the Middle East, with the problems that we're facing with Turkey. That's going to be the critical issue here. Turkey, in many ways, has made itself the least reliable partner in the NATO alliance for several years now, and there's a concern with President Erdogan's new powers that he may be feeling assertive enough to move in an even more difficult direction and closer to Russia in many ways on a bilateral basis and less dependent on the U.S. and NATO. So the question for the Trump administration is, how do we balance out our NATO relationship with Turkey? Turkey occupies critical real estate in the Middle East, in Southeast Europe, and in the Black Sea region. So the desire is to have Turkey remain an important player in the NATO alliance, but we have to persuade the Turks that there's an important balance here with supporting the Syrian Kurds, who are not a threat to Turkey. And how do we persuade Erdogan to understand our position there? That's going to be one of the most difficult issues for President Trump to deal with in addressing the Syrian Kurds, the Syrian civil war, and our relationship with Turkey in the years to come.